The Forsaken are the main antagonists of the Wheel of Time series, the strongest among the channelers from the Age of Legends who swore oaths to the Shadow. Most of these individuals were also masters in their own specific fields, from sport to philosophy to medicine. In the books, there are 13 Forsaken, but in the TV show it has been revealed that there are only 8. So who are these 8 Forsaken? So far 3 have been introduced in the show, but with some name dropping and other hints, it's possible to make a fairly strong guess at the other 5. But let's start with the 3 we've already met. Ishamael, the Betrayer of Hope, was a prominent philosopher in the Age of Legends. Figuring that the victory of the Dark One was inevitable due to the infinite cycle of repeated conflicts, Ishamael is the only Forsaken to turn to the Dark due to an actual belief in the Dark One's mission, rather than for personal gain. Because of this, and the fact that he is considered the strongest among the Forsaken, he usually has the favour of the Dark One as the first among the Forsaken. The second Forsaken we met was Lanfear, the daughter of the Night. Lanfear was a researcher. I guess you could consider her something like an experimental physicist. She was part of the team responsible for actually freeing the Dark One while investigating a source of power which could be sensed and accessed by both males and females, which it turned out was the Dark One himself. She was a former lover of Lews Therin, the dragon, and has a pathological obsession with regaining his affection. She considers herself master of the dream world, and is the strongest among the female Forsaken. The last Forsaken we saw at the end of Season 2 was Moghedien, the Spider. Moghedien was an investment consultant in the Age of Legends, and was responsible for instigating a number of setbacks in the War with the Shadow after betraying the Light early but secretly. She's considered the weakest among the Forsaken, and will always flee if she senses even a possibility of defeat, preferring to wait instead for guaranteed victory. She's a Dreamwalker, and despite Lanfear's claim to the dream world, Moghedien is believed to have superior abilities in manipulating this realm. In the TV series, Moghedien seems to display some eccentricity, or possibly even insanity, which isn't present in the books. As for the other 5 Forsaken, there are 2 or 3 major sources of information on who made the cut from the books. The first is a scene in Season 2 where Lanfear and Ishamael are talking in the dream world. Referring to the other Forsaken, Lanfear name drops both Moghedien and Grandel, and lumps the others as the boys. In the final scene of episode 8, Moghedien mentions Samael, another male Forsaken. Grandel, whose name means Vessel of Pleasure, was a psychologist in the Age of Legends. She was originally an ascetic, but after realizing the world could never live up to her high moral standards, she decided to instead become the antithesis of these beliefs, a so-called creature of decadence and excess. She keeps only the most attractive people as servants, and also collects important people, such as kings and nobles, to keep as servants after breaking their minds. She has a great ability with compulsion. She was referred to by Lanfear as a vain idiot in the TV series. Although in the books she is an extremely intelligent schemer, it's possible the show may play up this vain idiot idea to make her more of a bimbo type. Samael, or Destroyer of Hope, was a sportsman in the Age of Legends, a master archer as well as a world champion swordsman, possibly similar to a modern fencer. When the War of Power began, he discovered that he was also a gifted strategist and soldier, particularly in defense. He was irked by being overlooked for Supreme Command, which went to Lews Therin, and he defected 4 years into the war, betraying the Light by opening the city gates to the armies of the Shadow. So these are our 5 named Forsaken in the TV show. To guess at the other 3, there is one other source of information, which was this scene of the water warding off evil with little statues of the Forsaken in Season 1. Unlike at the temple scene in Season 2, we get a fairly clear look at all of the statuettes here. By picking out the already known characters, we're left with 3 figures. Contradicting Lanfear's comment referring to the last 4 Forsaken as the boys, one of these 3 definitely seems to be depicted as a woman. This leaves 2 possible candidates among the remaining Forsaken from the books. The first is Mesaana, who was a teacher in the Age of Legends. She wanted to be a researcher but was turned down for a position due to unsuitability or lack of distinguishment. During the war, after turning to the Dark, she taught children to serve the Dark One in the conquered regions. She created mobs and courts of children and trained them to betray each other, to harass those who stood out as different, and to betray their families and hunt down people from higher learning institutes. The other female Forsaken remaining is Semirhage, who was an extremely skilled physician or healer, but also a sadist. It was said she could cure anything short of death, but she also gave pain to those she treated. In addition, she killed those she thought undeserving of life, rather than curing them. When she was going to be punished for malpractice, she instead turned to the shadow to avoid this punishment, and later became an infamous torturer who people would bite through their own wrists in order to avoid. She also discovered a method for turning channelers unwillingly to the dark. Of these two, I think Semirhage is the most likely candidate for a Forsaken in the TV series. She has a more prominent individual role in the books. Mesaana's role and activities could more easily be merged into one of the other Forsaken. She also has a more unique persona as the sadistic torturer of the group, which would help to differentiate her from the others. Finally, her description as tall and slender fits well with the image from the figurine. This leaves us with two more of the boys. I think we can make a fairly good inference as to who these are. A big hint here is that one of them is carrying a lute or other guitar-style instrument. This strongly suggests Asmodean, who was a famous musician and composer in the Age of Legends. Asmodean turned to the shadow to take revenge on more accomplished musicians, as well as to attain immortality for the chance to reach musical perfection through an eternity of practice. He blinded or maimed musicians whose works he didn't like, or who were his rivals in the past. As Asmodean plays a key part in Book 4 of the series, it's likely that he will be the new Forsaken who's been teased by the showrunners as appearing in Series 3. The last figure is a bit of a mystery because they lack a distinguishing feature which could be used to pick which of the 5 remaining Forsaken they might be. Based on the relative importance of each character to the plot, and the current state of the show, I would suggest that this last Forsaken is probably Demandred, which also fits in with the mystery being maintained around them. Demandred was famous for always being one step behind Lews Therin, being born the day after, and overlooked for many awards during his lifetime. If not for Lews Therin, he would have been the most acclaimed man of the age. Thus he has an intense hatred and envy of Lews Therin. He discovered and studied warfare in ancient scripts before war itself was rediscovered, and was a brilliant general. Like Samael, he turned to the dark after being overlooked for command in favour of Lews Therin. Demandred's location and activities remain shrouded in mystery throughout most of the books, which could work well as a mystery builder in the show. The other 4 Forsaken I think are less likely for a few reasons. 2 of these appear in Book 1, so appear to have already been skipped. They are Agenor and Balthamel. Agenor was a biologist or geneticist in the Age of Legends who conducted unethical experiments, and turned to the shadow for a chance to further such experiments, as well as to seek immortality. It was Agenor who was responsible for creating the Trollocs, Myrddraal, and other deadly shadow-spawn creatures, which have not thus far appeared in the TV series, though this role might be attributed to another character in the show. Balthamel was a historian, known for having a large spy network, as well as being a gambler and a womanizer. He famously committed atrocities such as creating human breeding camps, which were used to feed the Trolloc armies. A third Forsaken, Belial, appears in Book 3, which it seems will be mostly skipped, according to the showrunners, so he is unlikely to be included. Belial was a lawyer in the Age of Legends. He was a skilled tactician and general, and fought on the side of the light for some time in the War of Power, before defecting. He revived the lost art of swordsmanship together with Lews Therin. He is considered to be the weakest of the male Forsaken. The last Forsaken is Raven, who was known for his lust for power and a talent for manipulation, as well as compulsion. In addition, he was known for an insatiable appetite for beautiful women. In this sense, he could maybe be seen as the male counterpart to Grendel. Although he plays a fairly important role in the story, I think it would be fairly simple to incorporate his activities into another character, such as Samael. As the show has merged several characters so far, it's probable that some aspects of the 5 missing Forsaken will be incorporated into the 8 that actually appear in the show. So those are the probable 8 Forsaken in the Wheel of Time TV series, as well as some brief info about the rest of the group from the books. Which Forsaken are you the most excited to see in the TV series?